Hello, this is Mrs. Clark, and this is my video for Algebra 1 on solving multi-step equations with combining like terms. So if we think back to our solving multi-step equations flowchart, we have the first step says use the distributive property to remove parentheses on each side of the equal sign. These examples may or may not have parentheses, so we'll start there if they do. Then we're going to combine like terms. We're not using the inverse operations yet. And then we're going to go to our two-step equation rules, which are to undo the addition or subtraction first to get rid of the constant term, then to undo multiplication or division. So starting and looking at these first examples that we have here, we don't have any parentheses in these first four examples. So we're not going to be doing that first step of using the distributive property. We're going to go to that second part, which is to start with combining like terms on each side of the equation. So again, I'm going to draw my line down the middle of my equation, divide the left side and the right side so I can keep everything on its proper side and my equal sign in the middle. On the left side, I'll notice I have a 4a minus 3a. So that needs to be combined together because both of those terms have a. So I'm going to go ahead and split the terms with a vertical line so we can see that we've got a positive 4a and a negative 3a. Now both of those can be combined by just looking at their coefficients. So I start with the 4 and minus 3. 4 minus 3 is 1, so I have 1a on this side of the equation. That's going to be equal to negative 6 because that is what the right side of the equation says. Whenever I'm solving an equation, I'm looking to isolate the variable to get the variable by itself, and combining like terms did that for me, so I'm finished with this equation. I can rewrite my answer a equals negative 6. If you don't like the 1a, they're both really the same thing, but I like to put a little box around my answer as well. Okay, looking at the second example, negative 4n minus 8n equals negative 24. So again, I'm going to divide both sides of the equal sign with a vertical line. And on the left side, again, I've got two terms. Both of them have n's. So the first term is negative 4n. The second term is negative 8n. When I combine them, I basically just look at their coefficients and I do whatever operation I see. So negative 4 minus 8 is going to be negative 12. So over here I've got negative 12n equals negative 24. Almost have the n by itself. Now I have just a coefficient of negative 12, which I have to get rid of. There's no constant term to add or subtract. So now that I'm trying to isolate the variable, I'm going to use my inverse operations. I need to remember that negative 12 is attached to this n by multiplication. So in order to get rid of it, I need division. So this fraction bar means division. So I'm going to divide both sides by the coefficient of n, which is negative 12. So I'm going to do the same thing on both sides to keep the equation balanced. And then I'm going to reduce and simplify each side. So on the left side, negative 12 divided by negative 12 will divide out, and that leaves me with just 1n equals negative 24 divided by negative 12 is going to be a positive number. 24 divided by 12 is 2, so it's positive 2. So n equals positive 2 is my final answer. Moving on to number 3. When I draw my line down my equal sign in number 3, you'll notice that most of the terms are on the right side of the equation this time, which is different than the last two examples that we did. So I've got negative 2 equals negative 8m plus 6 minus 8. I'm going to divide these terms by putting the vertical line in front of the plus and the minus. So the first term I have is a negative 8m. That is a term by itself. I don't have any other terms that have m's in them. But then I go to these other two and I've got a positive 6 and a negative 8. So this one and this one are going to be the ones I combine together. So before I do that, I'm going to rewrite what I've got. The left side of the equation is negative 2 equals negative 8m, because I'm not going to do anything with that because there's no other m's. And then I have plus 6 minus 8. So if I think of positive 6, subtract 8, my answer is going to be negative 2. So when I combine those two together, I get negative 2, so I'm going to put a minus 2 on the end here. Now we have to think back to our flow chart. This one involved a little bit more than the last two did. So first thing I've done is I've combined my like terms on both sides. I have not used any inverse operations. I'm going to skip 2b since I did the combining of the like terms. Now, for number 3, I'm going to look at undoing the addition or subtraction to get rid of the constant term, which is, I want to focus on the one that is on the same side as the variable. So next, I'm going to focus on the variable, which is over here, this negative 8m. I'll refocus the camera for a second there. Okay. So I'm going to focus where the m is here, and I'm going to look at the constant term. So the constant term is this negative 2. That's what I need to get rid of first using the inverse operations. So negative 2, the inverse of negative 2 is positive 2. So I'm going to put a plus 2 under there. I'm going to go to the other side of my vertical line. I'm going to put a plus 2 over here. I'm going to simplify each side. So on the left, I have negative 2 plus 2. That's 0, but I can cross them out, but I have to have something on that side of the equation. So I'm going to actually put 0 equals. And on the right side, I've got negative 8m. And then this negative 2 and this positive 2 also cancel out. So the difference here is these cancel out. I'm not going to write the plus 0. It's kind of pointless on this side. But on the left side, I have to write the 0 because I need to know what negative 8m is equal to. I need a number that represents that side, and when the two constants cancel out like that, the remainder is 0. So I put a 0 as a placeholder. Next, I have to go to that last step, that number 4, which is to undo multiplication or division to get rid of the coefficient of the variable. So the coefficient of my variable is a negative 8. So I'm going to have to divide by negative 8 to get rid of that. And I'm going to have to do the same thing on the other side to keep it balanced. So I'm going to have m on the right side equals 0 divided by negative 8. So I go to my calculator, I'm going to type in 0 divided by negative 8. It gives me 0, so m is equal to 0. And that is my final answer. You can keep it written like that, or you can write it the other way if you prefer it to be written on the left. Moving on to number 4. Negative 9 equals negative 8n plus 3 minus 4. So on the left side, I've got negative 9. I'm going to actually just bring that down. Negative 9 equals, so I can get my next step set up. I've got 3 terms here. Let's separate them in front of the plus and the minus. So again, I've got negative 8n plus 3 minus 4. This is very similar to the last problem. If this feels similar and easy to you, go ahead and pause the video now and try this one on your own, and then check back to make sure you did it correctly. Okay, so separating them this way tells me the first one has an n. That's the one with a variable. None of these other terms have a variable, so that negative 8n is not going to combine with anything. So I'm just going to bring it down. But this plus 3 and this minus 4, I have to do that math out to know what positive 3 subtract 4 is. And that's going to be negative 1. So I'm going to bring down a negative 1. These two terms combine to be negative 1. Then it's very much like the last one. I have to look at my side with the coefficient. I'm going to focus on this side, trying to isolate the n. So I start with the constant term, which is a negative 1. So I'm going to do the inverse, which is to add 1 on both sides. Negative 9 plus 1 is negative 8 equals negative 8n comes down, and negative 1 positive 1 cancels out. Now I just have the coefficient of the n to get rid of. I'm going to divide by negative 8. Whatever our coefficient is, I divide by the same thing so that they divide out and give me 1n. And then I have to do the same thing on the other side to keep it balanced. Over here, negative 8 divided by negative 8 also divides out to give me 1, but I got to write the 1 over here or I won't know what n is equal to. So I've got n equals 1, or n equals 1 like this. I'm okay with you leaving it either way. All right, let's move on to number 5.